Simon Cowell stopped the audition before the boy had sung a single note. He held up one hand. He looked at the folder the boy had placed on the judge's table. He said, very quietly, "Is this what I think it is?" The boy nodded, and Simon Cowell, who had not been surprised by anything in 20 years, sat back in his chair and could not speak. Another Tuesday night taping, the Pasadena Civic Auditorium, packed with 3,000 people. Cameras rolling, millions watching from home. Another hopeful contestant stepping into the spotlight. Howie Mandel was spinning a pen between his fingers. Heidi Klum had her hair pushed back over one shoulder, watching the wings. Sofa Vergara was leaning forward, elbows on the table, already engaged. Simon Cowell sat at the center, black shirt, arms crossed. That familiar expression of measured skepticism that had survived 1,000 seasons and meant nothing had surprised him in a long time. Just another Tuesday night. Just another audition. The boy who walked out was 12 years old. Small, dark-haired. He wore a gray sweater and neat dark trousers and white trainers that had been cleaned recently. Not new, just cared for. He carried a manila folder, thick with paper, held against his chest with both hands. He walked to center stage with the careful deliberateness of someone who had rehearsed everything. Not just the song, the walk, the stop, the breath before speaking. He stood in the spotlight and looked out at the audience, and something in his face was older than 12. Terry Crews bounded out. "Hey, my man, tell me your name." "Noah," the boy said. "Noah Beckett. Noah Beckett." "How old are you, Noah?" 12, the audience responded warmly. Fully, Terry grinned and crouched slightly. "And what are you doing for us tonight?" "I'm going to sing a song my dad wrote." Noah's voice was steady, clear. He wrote a lot of songs. He wrote them for years, and nobody listened. But before he died, he sent them somewhere. He paused. He looked at the judge's table. At Simon Cowell, specifically, he sent them here. And someone wrote back. The room shifted. Something changed in the air. Sofa Vergara sat up straighter. Howie Mandel stopped spinning the pen. Heidi Klum's expression moved from warmth to attention, a different kind of listening. Simon Cowell looked up from his notepad. He looked at the boy. At the folder pressed against the boy's chest, Terry kept his voice gentle. "Who wrote back, Noah?" Noah walked to the judge's table. He set the folder down in front of Simon Cowell. He stepped back. He clasped his hands in front of him and waited. Simon looked at the folder. He opened it. Inside, a stack of papers, handwritten and typed, some yellowed at the edges. Sheet music, lyric drafts, and on top of everything, a single letter. One page. Simon picked it up. He read it. He stopped. He read it again. Simon Cowell stopped the audition before the boy had sung a single note. He held up one hand. He looked at the folder, the sheet music, the lyric drafts, the letter on top. He said, very quietly, "Is this what I think it is?" "Yes," Noah said. Simon set the letter down with both hands, very carefully. He looked at Noah Beckett, 12 years old, gray sweater, white trainers cleaned but not new. For a long moment he did not speak at all. Howie Mandel had gone completely still. Heidi Klum pressed a hand flat to her sternum. Sofa Vergara leaned back slowly, both hands on the table, watching Simon the way you watch someone cross a room carrying something fragile. Simon stood. He stepped around the judge's table. In 15 seasons, he had never crossed onto the stage floor before a contestant performed. He did it now. He walked to where Noah was standing. He stood in front of the boy. He looked at him. "How old were you," he said quietly, "when your father died?" 7, Noah said. "He died 5 years ago." Simon looked at the folder on the table, then back at the boy. His jaw worked once. He said nothing. He put his hand briefly on Noah's shoulder, turned, and walked back to the judge's table. He sat down. He was not composed. He made no effort to be. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what happened 14 years earlier. In 2011, a man named Patrick Beckett was 31 years old. Working the overnight shift at a bottling plant in Cincinnati, Ohio, writing songs in a spiral notebook on his break. He had been doing this for 8 years. Every shift, same notebook brand, same corner of the break room, same 40 minutes of writing before the line started again. He was not precious about it. He did not call himself a songwriter at parties. He called himself a factory worker who happened to write songs, because that was what was true. The songs were about ordinary things: family, memory, the specific weight of Midwestern winter, the way a person can love a place and need to leave it at the same time. They were not complicated songs. They were honest ones. Patrick had a rule: if a line was too clever, cut it. The job of a lyric, he believed, was to say the true thing plainly enough that anyone who had ever felt it would recognize it instantly. He had a wife, Maria, a daughter, Clara, 4 years old, and a son, Noah, who was not yet born. Maria was 7 months pregnant. Patrick worked nights so Maria could work days. They passed Noah's baby furniture back and forth between rooms, assembling and reassembling it as their schedules allowed. They were tired and solvent and in love. A very particular kind of life. Patrick tried to write about it honestly, in the break room, between shifts. He sent his songs out twice a year, typed up the best 3 or 4 from each notebook, made recordings on a handheld recorder in the living room after Clara went to sleep, sent them to labels, to publishers, to production companies, to anyone whose address he could find on a public filing or a website's contact page. He did not expect responses. He sent them because the songs existed and deserved to be heard, and because the alternative was just not sending them. He had been doing this for 8 years without a single substantial reply. In the spring of 2011, he put together a package. 4 songs, 4 recordings, a cover letter, 3 paragraphs, plain and direct, that described what the songs were about and what he believed they were trying to do. He addressed it to the production company behind America's Got Talent. He included, specifically, Simon Cowell's name on the outer envelope. He had watched Simon for years. He believed that someone who valued honesty that bluntly might recognize honesty in a song. The package arrived. It was routed to an assistant, who flagged it, who passed it upward. It arrived. It was routed to an assistant, who flagged it and passed it upward. By a set of small accidents Patrick never knew about, a canceled meeting, a slow afternoon, it reached Simon Cowell on a Wednesday in April. Simon read the cover letter. He listened to the recordings on the small speaker on his desk. He listened to all 4. Then he sat for a while. Then he picked up a pen. He wrote 1 page. He said the songs were real. He said Patrick had something the industry called unsellable, but audiences called it true. Those were 2 assessments about the industry's preferences, not about the song's worth. He said, the songs are right. Keep writing. Keep sending. Don't let the silence tell you anything it doesn't actually know. He signed it. Simon Cowell. He sent it. Patrick Beckett received the letter on a Saturday afternoon. He read it at the kitchen table, while Noah's baby furniture sat half-assembled in the hallway, and Clara watched television in the next room. He read it 3 times. He called Maria into the kitchen, and she read it too. Then they sat at the kitchen table for a while, without saying much. which was the way they handled things that mattered. Patrick put the letter in the manila folder with the best copies of his lyrics and his sheet music. He wrote on the tab with a marker, "Dad was right." Not about himself, about the songs. He had always known the songs were real. Now someone else had said so. In writing, that was different. That was proof. He kept writing. 2 more notebooks that year. 3 the year after. He kept sending packages out. A few small responses trickled back. A regional publisher interested in one lyric, a session musician who used a chord progression in a jingle. Nothing that changed anything. He kept writing. Noah was born in July. Patrick was there for the whole night. Then, he drove home in the early morning and sat in the car for a few minutes. Everything felt too large for the inside of the house. He went in eventually. He wrote about it in the break room that night. In 2016, Patrick Beckett was diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's disease. He was 36. The progression was faster than expected. Within 2 years, he could no longer hold a pen steadily enough to write in the notebook. He dictated to Maria instead. She wrote it down. He kept going. He died in 2019. He was 39 years old. Noah was 7. Clara was 12. Before he died, Patrick showed Noah the manila folder. He told him about the songs. He told him about the letter. He told him who had written it and why it mattered. He said, "I was right about the songs. Someone told me so. And that means I was right about everything I believed about what honest things are worth." He told Noah, "One day you'll know what to do with the folder." Noah was 7. He filed it away in the part of himself where important things go when you are too young to use them. He grew. He practiced. He had his father's voice. Maria recognized it the first time Noah sang in the kitchen at age 9. The same placement. The same instinct for where a note should land. She said nothing about it for a year. Then she said, "Your father would have loved to hear that." Noah sang his father's songs for 3 years in his bedroom, learning them one by one from the notebooks and the handwritten sheets in the folder. At 11, he decided. At 12, he submitted the audition. He did not mention the letter in the video. He saved it. He thought that was the end of the story. Until tonight. On the stage of the Pasadena Civic Auditorium, Simon Cowell sat at the judge's table with a 12-year-old boy's father's folder open in front of him. The letter on top. His own signature at the bottom. 2011, 14 years ago. A Wednesday afternoon. A slow day. A canceled meeting. 4 songs on a small speaker. He remembered writing it. He had written hundreds of letters over his career. Brief ones, honest ones, sent to people whose work deserved acknowledgement even when the timing was wrong. He wrote them because he believed in the rule. If something is true, say so. Most of those letters disappeared into lives he never heard from again. He had always assumed that was fine. He had always assumed they mattered in ways he would never know. He had not expected to be sitting across from the proof. Noah Beckett, 12 years old, gray sweater, weight trainers cleaned but not new, turned to face the auditorium. He drew one long breath. He opened the folder to the first page of the first song. He looked at his father's handwriting. Then he looked up. He sang. The song was called "Everything I Know." Patrick Beckett had written it in the break room of a bottling plant in Cincinnati. A Tuesday night in February. Noah was 3. Clara was 8. The Midwestern winter was pressing against every window in the house. It was about what a father wants to pass on and the knowledge that time is shorter than the list. It was built on a melody so unadorned it felt like something discovered rather than composed. Patrick had revised it 11 times. He had believed, with the certainty of someone who has checked carefully that every line was true. Noah sang it without ornamentation, without performance. He sang it the way his father had always written, plainly, directly, as if the only job was to say the true thing clearly enough. His 12-year-old voice was clear and unpolished and completely exact. Every person in the auditorium heard it differently, through whatever they had lost or were afraid of losing. Every person in the auditorium heard the same thing. If this story moved you, share it. Subscribe so you never miss a moment like this one. When the last note ended, the silence lasted 7 full seconds. 3,000 people. Not a sound. Then, they stood. Every one of them. The noise was enormous and human and involuntary, the kind that surprises the people making it. Heidi Klum was on her feet with both hands pressed to her face. Howie Mandel stood with his head tilted back and his eyes closed. Sofia Vergara was crying steadily and made no attempt to stop. Simon Cowell reached forward. No hesitation. No pause. He pressed the golden buzzer without a word. Gold confetti fell over Noah Beckett. He stood in it with his eyes open, and the folder in his hands and his father's handwriting on the top page. He did not move for a moment. He just stood there in the light and let it settle. In the months that followed, Patrick Beckett's songs were recorded. 6 of the 14 notebooks were published as a collection, lyric sheets, chord notations, the handwriting exactly as Patrick had left it. A small label released 4 songs as an EP, credited to Patrick Beckett, performed by Noah. The record reached people who had never heard of either of them and wrote about it as if they had been waiting for it. Maria Beckett framed Simon's letter and hung it in the hallway of their house in Cincinnati. Next to a photograph of Patrick in the break room, with his notebook, the tab on the manila folder still reads, in Patrick's handwriting, "Dad was right. It always will." Some people are right their whole lives and never hear it. Sometimes the proof arrives late. It arrives